Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Open Lines today. I know some of you were looking at an older newsletter. You thought we were going to have Mr. Caravala as a guest today, but he had a sudden change in plans. He is rescheduling, and that will appear on the schedule once he has done that. So we were planning open lines later in the month, but we're going to have open lines today. And if a lot keeps happening, maybe we'll have it later in the month as well. It's fun to talk about things that are going on, like the surprise potential Louisiana purchase you may hear about in a few minutes from Mr. Zimmerman, who is with us today. But anyway, it's great to be here today. Let me briefly tell you that on Tuesday, Dr. Eligar Sadeh is back. And the reason he is back, he's a major editor for Astropolitics, which is an academic peer-reviewed journal. He is looking for people to sort of help out Astropolitics and do review of different journal articles and stuff, all space related. I withdrew from doing it because I simply don't have time to do it. But he has a very impressive list of participants and reviewers, and I think he's going to talk about that on the show. And maybe some of you might want to volunteer to review if an article comes out that addresses your expertise. If an article is submitted that addresses your area of expertise, Eligar can call on you to be one of the objective peer reviewers of that article for publication in Astropolitics. So that is on Tuesday evening. I don't know who our Hotel Mars guest is because I haven't heard from Mr. Batchelor. So hopefully we'll have one. Gary Barnhart, who many of you know from ISDC and NSS and from the Space Show and many other sources, wrote a very interesting engineering-oriented data center critique, if I can use that word, that he sent to the Howard Bloom newsletter, which is where I picked it up. And I asked Gary to come on the Space Show and talk about data centers in space from his systems engineering perspective. I will get his permission to put his comments on either the Space Show blog or on something. Even though he published it with Howard, I seek permission from people to do that with their intellectual property. It's worth reading for all of you, and Gary will be back on Friday, May 8th. He's quite a wise and intelligent guy. He also wants to pitch ISDC, but on Tuesday, May 12th, we do have our ISDC show with Rod Pyle and Aggie Coburn and Sherry. So that will be Tuesday, May 12th. No show on Mother's Day. We take a break. And of course, later on, no show for Father's Day either. And that's what we have for coming programs. We do have openings in May. If any of you are thinking about who should be a Space Show guest, or maybe you have something to say to a broader audience that is relevant about something to do with space, let me know. Because as I said, we do have, openings for May, and I look forward to filling them rather quickly. But today is open lines. Anything goes. People can call the Zoom phone lines. I don't publish the numbers anymore, but in the show's description, I state that if you want to participate by phone, email me before the show and I'll give you instructions. So if I get those emails, I do always send them information, and people are welcome to participate by telephone if they want to on a Zoom show. So I did allude to the wisecrack about Zimmerman writing about the new SpaceX Louisiana purchase consisting of 200 acres for what?
Not 200 acres, David, more than 200 square
And
miles.
that's for gator farming in Louisiana. Is that what
No, well, it's the top post on Behind the Black right now. One of my readers sent me a link to a very detailed, really detailed analysis of a situation in southern Louisiana on the coast near an unincorporated town called Pecan Island. It appears that there are great rumors throughout that region that SpaceX either has or is in the process of acquiring approximately 136,000 acres of coastal Louisiana marshland. This is a plot of land that's actually owned by Exxon. Exxon had planned something else there, but had backed off. And so it had been sitting unused. And so this research guy, he's getting rumors, he's talked to a lot of people, and he's speculating. He has not been able to confirm that SpaceX is the buyer, but he's getting lots and lots and lots of unconfirmed people telling him, yes, that's the case. And then he proceeds to go into great detail for the local community. He's a real estate agent there, the pros and cons for people who own land there, whether they should buy or sell, whether they should but when they get an offer, whether they should take the offer, depending on where they're located, et cetera, et cetera. He spends a lot of time, and I linked all this, spends a lot of time talking about the logic of this location. And it's very clear to me that if it's true, it makes some sense because this very large plot of land, it would be perfect for SpaceX to start establishing its many data centers for its AI and for its larger purposes. Its manufacturing of satellites at they want to put a million satellite constellation up. You're gonna have to have major construction. The location's right in between on the intercoastal waterway between Cape Canaveral and Boca Chica. So if you wanted to build Starships and Super Heavies there, shipping them to either location would make sense. There's the possibility they could also do launches from here, though. It's really only good for polar launches, really. They could do some to the east, but they're limited there. So I'm not sure a launch site would be the possibility. Once again, this is all speculation. It's not confirmed yet, but I think if true, remember this is 200 more than 200 square miles of land on the coast. And as the real estate agent points out, Boca Chica has a footprint of less than 100 acres. So it gives you some perspective of what could go on here if it is true. We have to wait and see. But that's the story that I got on Behind the Black right now.
Has anyone tried to confirm it with SpaceX, or they don't have a
This agent
response?
tried. He tried very hard, but he could not get any confirmations yet officially anywhere.
I don't suppose anybody's thought about whether this creates a place where there's sufficient barrier from sound because the launches are very loud. So maybe if they put the launch in the middle of this territory, they wouldn't be disturbing anybody from a noise perspective.
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely correct. I mean, he's got a very large footprint, so he could definitely isolate himself away. I was thinking a different aspect, which is both Boca Chica and Cape, they're somewhat cramped. Even with manufacturing facilities, it's cramped, even though it's convenient to have it right next to the launch site. This gives him space to really set up. And also, as you say, Phil, far away from local community. Data centers are having lots of trouble. All of these AI companies that want to build data centers, they're having trouble getting them built because the communities don't like them. He gets a big footprint like this, he has less of those problems because he can isolate it from the local community. I mean, once again, it's all speculation. We don't know if it's true or not. It could very well be, who knows, Microsoft is buying it, for their data centers. We don't really know yet. Nothing's confirmed. But that this guy was focusing on SpaceX is really interesting based on the rumors in his region.
Yeah, any idea what it costs to buy that land?
Have no idea. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, it's about 30 miles east of where all the natural gas pipelines come together to. It's Sabine Pass, Louisiana.
Yes, that was another point he made. The power and natural gas facilities are nearby, which makes sense again.
Yeah, that's where the big natural gas export terminals are.
Yeah,
right there.
It's very interesting. So who knows? This is just, SpaceX, the great empire of SpaceX grows on a daily. The American space program continues to grow, and it's not at NASA headquarters.
If he wanted to use it as a launch site, I'd like to see the patterns going east for possible debris. And I know in talking to Gwen years ago, when they were working to get approval to launch east from Boca Chica, they had a huge problem with the dispersion of oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico and shipping routes. And
I have one comment.
I don't know what comes in to Louisiana, or I don't know anything about this location, but I would think dispersion of traffic in the Gulf, I guess it's the Gulf of America now, would probably be a concern for eastward launches. And I
The
have no
eastward
clue.
launches, he would be going, if he went due east, he'd be going over New Orleans, no good. I have one comment on my website that you could, quote, thread the needle just south of Florida for medium inclination launches, just to do it Boca
That's what
Chica.
that's the language Gwen used. They had a very careful needle to thread to be able to launch from Boca Chica. I remember that.
Once again, it's an option, David, for sure, and polar launches for sure.
So
But once again, we're dealing with speculation here.
So this is between Louisiana and Texas.
It's in Louisiana.
It's in Louisiana, but up to the Texas border.
No, if you look at I have a map on behind the block. Look at my
Okay.
I place the location. It's probably almost dead center in Louisiana, a little bit to the western edge, but it's closer to the middle of the state. So it's not near Texas. It's in the middle of Louisiana on the coast, southern
Okay.
coast. I put the map up specifically to give clarity on this issue. And once again, you could see that they would have a limited number of options going east for launches, but the polar launches would work. They would have also, as you say, the oil rig issue in the Gulf might be an issue, no matter what they do. This is very speculative. Once again, we do not know yet confirmed if SpaceX is doing this. I really think the focus here would be more manufacturing and data center facilities in a space this large. I think that would be the primary first focus, I think.
Does Louisiana, does anybody know, have a nuclear power plant? Does anyone know if they have nuclear power in Louisiana?
Probably AJ would know, but he's not here today, I guess.
Who?
AJ. Oh, AJ's here.
I'm here, but I think that they do have a nuclear power plant, but I'm not absolutely sure. I'm just 50-50.
Well, someone might Google it real quick, and so I'm just curious. I don't know that it's relevant to anything. I guess if he needs power for data centers, it might be relevant if they had nuclear power.
Based on what a lot of data centers are doing and based on the size of this facility, I will bet you $10 to donuts that any data centers they put in here, they will be aiming at establishing their own power systems right within the territory, including a lot of the very small new nuclear powered plants that are being developed, very small for this kind of purpose. I wouldn't be surprised if they established their own power right in this. Right
Also remember, Elon believes in solar plus batteries, so he might well just take 100,000, acres and cover them with solar panels.
Yeah, it's more likely he'd want to do that. Like if he was buying land for that, I don't think he'd need so much land. I think he would buy some high altitude land in the Rockies or something, or some mountainous deserty area at a high altitude would be better for what he wants to do with solar and storage.
Yeah, but if you're going to build a data center, this is right in the middle of the United States. It's the perfect place. All the fiber goes by just north of there. There's tons of natural gas available. There's, like the only problem would be hurricanes. Like this
That's a big problem.
this area does get hurricanes. So
yeah, but that applies
issue,
to Kennedy and Boca Chica as well. It's anything on the Gulf, you have the same problem. That's just the same problem.
There are 2 nuclear power plants in Louisiana.
Yep.
They have 2 of them?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's 2 gigawatts total between the 2 of them.
And Nevada has 0. Oh, well. Anyone surprised that Artemis 3 is being delayed? Okay.
Oh, no.
People were
Quite
surprised to speak
expected.
now. Yeah.
Well,
I repeat, I've predicted for years that the landing won't happen till 30. Eisenman might prove me wrong, but 28, I remain very skeptical.
Has anyone said why they're delaying it till is it just because the landers aren't ready, or
From what I saw, I some of the news reports I saw, and from what I can gather, after talking to his lunar lander vendors, that's the term they used, which means Blue Origin and SpaceX, both companies said for the 27 mission orbiting around the Earth to do tests of the landers in rendezvous and docking, they both wanted as much time as possible. So he hasn't made any specific announcements, but in two different presentations, the change in time was noted from the mid 27 at first to late 27 in a later discussion. And in the second story, it was linked to what the vendors wished. So I think they want more time to be ready for that Earth orbiting Artemis 3 mission. That's at least the what we know. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that would be
You,
unsurprising.
do you think that the Artemis 3 mission being postponed is because New Glenn's upper stage didn't quite do as well as it should have, and that sort of have put probably SpaceX was already in a bind to be able to do it by the middle of 27, and now because of Bezos also this problem. Do you think both of those things together has pushed this thing back?
Well, the
3 or 4
vendors
months?
asked the extra time. That's all we know. I'm not going to speculate beyond that. Both vendors, SpaceX and Blue Origin, told Isaacman they'd rather have a little more time. And so he shifted it to late 27. The impact to Artemis 4 and 5, the so-called two missions in 28 that are going to land, well, those are impacted by this.
Yeah.
Because if SLS Orion, if it does an orbital mission late in 27, they will not be able to stack SLS quickly enough to do two missions to the moon in 28. It just ain't going to happen. No matter how much he wants to increase the cadence, it's not realistic.
Not
Well,
going to happen. Yeah.
Oh, they can only stack one SLS at a time, right? Because
Right, exactly.
they only have one mobile launcher. They have two bays in the vehicle assembly building. They could stack one in, but they only have one platform.
Yeah, only one mobile launcher. I mean, realistically, just based on construction, my understanding is yes, it's one at a time. And I'm sure Isaacman's pushing hard to speed this up. That's his whole point. He wants the cadence to be much faster. But he admitted 10 months is the best he thought he could make it happen.
If they want to speed
You know.
up, they have to rescue mobile launcher 2. They have to turn that thing into something they can use.
Well, based on everything I've read, they're not going to be able to turn it into much of anything except scrap. Based on what's the company? Beltrain? I might have the name wrong. Bechtel.
Yeah.
They are so incompetent in the building of that it's basically scrap. It would have been a waste of money to try to finish it.
That was canceled.
Which
I
nobody
thought,
bought.
the number 2 of Bechtel was canceled already.
That's right. It's gone. And I don't think you could modify. It's not worth modifying. Once again, I don't think even if you had the second mobile launcher and it matched the first, I don't think it would change anything because the ability to assemble segments, solid rocket booster segments, and the core stage of SLS is just so slow and cumbersome that even with 5 mobile launches, you're not going to get one launched, I think, faster than once. And once again, the best Isaacman thinks is once every 10 months. If he thinks he can do it in 10 months, I'll give him credit for that. But that's
Did he mention what the bottleneck was? Like, is it the engines or something else that can't be ramped up faster than 10 months?
It's cumbersome, it's slow to build. It's just
If you want to understand this, Phil Sloss has a YouTube video like every 2 weeks or something like that about SLS processing and what they're doing, and it is crazy the number of steps involved in assembling an SLS. And the fact that every single module in the SLS has to be handled both vertically and horizontally. And there's a special fixture to take every single piece of SLS and flip it from horizontal to vertical, or vice versa. And there's all this special hardware that does not fly, that is used for building an SLS. It is amazing. Right? Like I would say, like you could not make it more complicated to build a rocket than what they've done with SLS.
So who has the video again?
There's
Phil
a guy named
Sloss.
Phil Sloss. He's on YouTube.
I
And
don't, somebody posted in the,
he
I don't,
does
I'm not getting
a series like every week or two, or whenever NASA does an announcement about SLS, he does break it down, and he takes all the NASA video and still frames and explains what's going on in them and stuff like that. And it's really good stuff, right? He's a great guy.
I mean, I look at like SLS and then compare that to Starship, and I feel like there's got to be the similar number of steps. I mean, Starship seems to have just as many things that have to be attached and put together and moved around and assembled,
Not
and yet they can do it faster.
nearly as many. There
Not
aren't
as many.
there aren't interstages in Starship. Well, there's one effectively. There's a top thing and a bottom thing, right? And that's it, right? There isn't an engine section you build in one place and then ship somewhere else and then put the engines in it and then turn it sideways and then put some coating on the outside and then flip it vertically and put it on a barge and send it somewhere else. And then mate it with the top 4 sections of the next stage, which are all built in different places. It's amazing.
I mean, Starship has like fins and heat shields and
But you build them all in one building, and it's always kept vertical. They never make any part of Starship is never horizontal.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Remember too, Musk's motto: "The best part is no part." They have specialized in simplifying things for manufacturing multiple starships on assembly line basis quickly and cheaply. And as Joe points out, that is not what NASA and Boeing has done and Congress, because it's mandated by Congress.
They wanted the maximum number of congressional districts involved in building an SLS.
Right.
And they got it.
Right? That was going to be my question. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
just hire SpaceX to assemble SLS.
I mean, actually, Phil, you're raising a good point, though, because Starship and SLS in many ways are comparable heavy lift rockets. And what we see here is a wonderful controlled experiment on how to do it right and how to do it wrong. And it's possible to do it right and efficiently assembly line, and SpaceX is demonstrating.
Yeah, I mean, now Starship Super Heavy isn't as far along as SLS is, right? So
no, not at all. It's developed.
I mean, logistically, in terms of like assembly and stuff, they're ahead. Like Starship seems to have a better process for making starships than SLS has for making SLSs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, SLS is now considered an operational rocket. I wouldn't, but they consider it operational. It's launched people and it's flying its missions. Starship is developmental right now. We're still seeing a rocket being developed. And so that's a major difference. But in the development, they have focused strongly on how to manufacture it efficiently and quickly so that when it's operational, it can operate well and efficiently. SLS, was not a focus. That was not a focus at all. And so this is the difference. I have some people on Behind the Black that comment that like to coddle and brag about how SLS has run 2 operational missions around the moon. And what has Starship done? It hasn't even gotten into orbit. But the difference is developmental versus operational. And NASA took the attitude, we're not going to do lots of test launches. We're going to do everything in the computer. We're going to get it right. It's going to cost a lot more money. But when we're ready, we'll finally do our first launch and it'll work. SpaceX is developing its rocket launch by launch. And I think in the end, once again, this is tortoise hair, and it's not really tortoise hair, but SpaceX is going to fly past SLS in 2 or 3 years.
It's like the tortoise wins the race, though. So you have to be careful what you say there.
It's always
yes, right. It's not a good analogy, Phil. But the thing is, SpaceX in the end is going to win this race. There's no question, and it's because SLS just is so, as Joe pointed out, it's just a poorly designed rocket for building bases on other worlds because you can't launch it very often, and it costs so much. It's not.
But that's what I'm wondering. Like, I feel like that's not a rocket design problem so much as an organizational problem. And if you put Jared Isaacman, who's a CEO who's good at getting things done, in charge of that program, and he's already said he wants to ramp up the launch rates. So I have some faith in Jared Isaacman to ramp up the launch rates and be able to like turn those rockets around, I don't know, eventually every 6 months.
No,
And
actually, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's a very good politician, and I can read him. Well, I'm now beginning to understand how his politics work. He's trying to speed up SLS as Starship and also the upgraded New Glenn rockets maybe come along. And he's hoping in 2 years he's going to be in a situation where he can demonstrate unequivocally that it's better to move on to other launch rockets than SLS. That's where he's going with this. He's going to let SLS and Boeing try to prove they can up the launch rate. But in 2 years, if they still can't do it in less than 10 months, and they're not going to be able to do it in less than 10 months, he's going to have the freedom to say, and Congress is going to go along with this at this point. I'm sure of it, based on everything I've seen from Congress, to finally replace SLS. That's where he's going. They're never going to get it to 6 months, Phil. I'm sorry. I wish.
but like let's assume he doesn't have an outcome in mind. He's just like putting pressure on all sides. He could be saying,
Right.
SLS, you got to increase your rates, and Starship, you got to get into orbit and prove you can do it with 100 tons of payload like you promised. So he could be pushing both parties, and he's going to just wait and see what happens, right?
He is. I'm sure he's doing that. And he's doing that sincerely for both parties. I have no doubt about that. That's his good politics, because that's the way to get people on your side to say, I'm not against either one of you. You got to prove yourself. But he knows, I think, without question, that the reality is that in 2 years, SLS is going to lose this fight. He knows it, but he's not defeating them up ahead. He's going to let them show they can't match SpaceX. That's what's going to happen. That's what I'm predicting.
Yeah.
But he's doing it smart. He's not saying SLS is dead. He's saying, okay, you guys, show me what you can do. See if you can compete. And they're not going to be able to. That's the bottom line.
So I have a different point of view on his what he's thinking. I think when I listen to him talk, that my read on it is that he doesn't believe that Starship is going to be able to stay on schedule. He's seen too much slippage from that program, and he thinks that SLS, if they just push a little bit faster, will beat Starship. And just by upping the rate, they'll be able to become kind of a Starship-like competitor. And right now they're not, and he's pushing them to compete. And he's thinking, well, that's going to basically force Congress to say, yeah, we can't rely on commercial for settling the moon. We've got to fund it, and we've got to do it through NASA.
Look what happened with Falcon 9. Once Falcon 9 went operational, very shortly thereafter, no one used anything else to launch. Right? Like they're what, 90% of the volume of non-Chinese launches now, or something huge like that.
They're huge. They're huge.
Right?
But mostly because they launched Starlink.
Starship is going to do the same thing. Once Starship becomes operational, which may take a little longer than we'd like, which is the thing that I think Jared is using SLS as a counter to, right? It's like, we have to stay on this horse until we have another horse. Is once Starship goes operational, it's going to sweep the market away. There won't be.
I don't think it's the same analogy, because basically going to the moon is a very different problem from a rocket equation perspective. You need to have a much lighter structural mass in order to get to the moon economically, and Starship is the opposite of a lighter structural mass. It's very heavy. It might be more optimal for getting into orbit because it's more reusable, but for getting to the moon, it's just not reusable. And it's going to be, if they try to do it reusably, they'll have to have many launches to refuel it, and it's going to be an inefficient way to get to the moon.
Well, you see, the whole design of Starship is for many launches. SpaceX and Musk recognizes that. He's designing the assembly line to be able to do many launches so that he can do exactly what needs to be done to get his lunar base, his data center lunar bases going, and eventually maybe get to Mars. That's his plan. The infrastructure design, the structural design of the two lunar rockets to get to the moon is different. There's no doubt. You're right, Phil. But SpaceX has designed Starship to handle your complaint. And once again, as Joe says, it's going to take time, SpaceX, to get moving. But every indication is they're going to succeed. Those first 11 test flights demonstrated unequivocally to me they're going to succeed down the road. The thing that most convinces me is the last test where they left sections no tiles in sections of the hull that were going to get high temperature to test how well the hull could take it without tiles, and it took it. You know, as they tested the robustness of their hull versus no thermal protection, and I think that just demonstrates this rocket's going to work. It's just
Yes, but I think that the problem is that what Phil is talking about, even if they have a capability to produce lots and lots of upper stages and booster stages, let's say upper stages, the requirement of 10 to 15 refueling for going to the moon is still going to be there with the dry weight and mass structure that they have. What I've been talking about also for a while is that SpaceX for Starship needs to have the upper stage with a much smaller dry weight, because dry weight is what you have to take to the moon. And that dry weight, when it is very high, it has to be refueled so many times. So until that happens, I don't really feel that Starship is going to be as successful as some people think.
I'd like to point out one of the key things is the launch facilities. SpaceX has spent a huge amount of money setting up the new launch system for Flight Test 12, and that is probably a bigger key to how often you can launch than anything else. They've got to be able to catch and refurbish and then set it back up. And with two of them, they're going to be able to launch quite a bit. But if they hadn't taken the time to totally redesign the launch facilities, you'd be back on the old first launch system, and you would be very correct. I wouldn't think they could do that many launches. So the launch facility design is probably 4 times more complex than the rocket.
Yeah, they've made
And
it
also, I would add to that.
trade-off there between complexity of the vehicle and complexity of the launch system, right? There's even in Launcher 1, which is sort of primitive compared to what they're building now. Launcher 1, the original pad, did a lot of things that the vehicle would otherwise have to do, right? And so the way they built the launch pad and all that, and the whole idea of like the catch instead of landing on legs and stuff like that, every time they make an engineering decision, they put the effort into fixed infrastructure that doesn't fly versus the vehicle, right? Like the giant building for assembling them. They said, why have one vehicle assembly building where we assemble 1 or 2 rockets at one time? Why don't we build a giant building where we can build 20 of them at the same time, right? And they're going to have 5 launch facilities by the end of next year, right? Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, infrastructure makes so much more sense than focusing on the vehicles.
I mean,
Well,
remember,
the question is, does
okay.
the Starship have the ability, though, the Delta V, to do a complete round trip to the moon and come back?
No, it can't do that.
It can't. And the other problem is that this 10 to 15 refueling that we are talking about, the upper stage in that case will always re-enter and burn up. So that's not a good
what first stage will burn up? What are you talking about, AJ?
The tanker.
The first stage of Starship Super Heavy is super heavy. It's going to come back every time and land.
No. The upper stage. I said the upper stage, which is the tanker. The tanker stage will have to burn up. Let's say it refuels successfully, and so 10 to 15 times, and then it will have to burn up. That's a very bad look for that. So I think that all in all,
just clarify, AJ, what you mean by the tanker stage, because the tankers, as I understand it, only go to low Earth orbit and they come back and they keep repeating that process to refuel.
The
depot.
No, they don't come back, and they are not. They don't have the tiles and re-entry tiles to be able to come back.
We're talking about the tankers that refuel the fuel depot, right? Not going to Mars, not going to the moon, just
not going to
up
the moon,
and down.
Just the tanker.
I don't think you're right, AJ. They're going to use Starship as the tanker.
I think there is a idea of launching essentially a big fuel tank, which looks like a Starship, but it's just a fuel tank, and have that be in orbit, and then do a bunch of the fueling missions to that, and then have the lunar Starship go to that thing, suck the fuel out of it, and go to the moon.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
that tank that sits in orbit, maybe it gets thrown away, but it doesn't have tiles and it doesn't have fins.
Right, but
No,
that's different
no,
than
no.
what AJ is saying. That's a
No,
much different idea.
Yeah. What I have read is that the depot will go, well, whether it goes first or not, but let's say it goes first, and then 10 other tankers or so will go and refuel that one at a time. Obviously, those tankers will have to re-enter and they will burn up. And so that's what I'm talking about. The last, of course, the last one will take off and join with the depot and be able to go to the moon. But that really whole thing is not a very good look.
So AJ, I heard a different story on this. I heard your story in the sense of a backup plan, but the primary plan I heard is that those tankers go up, refuel the fuel depot, and then they do re-enter and get caught by the tower, and then they get refilled with fuel, and they go up again and again and again. And so they're reusable, fully reusable is the plan for the tankers. And eventually the fuel depot gets filled up, and then another rocket goes up, another upper stage, which is the HLS, and it gets filled from the fuel depot and goes to the moon, comes back into orbit around the moon, and then it gets thrown away. It doesn't get to come all the way back to Earth. That's the plan I heard. Now Zubrin has mentioned a different plan, and now you're mentioning a different plan. So I'm not sure where these plans are coming from, but
let me just insert here that what you described, Phil, is what I understood, and it also fits the philosophy of SpaceX. The whole point of Starship is that quick launch and reusability. Caught by the chopstick arms, you're on the launch pad already. If things go even as ideally as they want, they could literally stack it immediately to Super Heavy, fuel it up, and launch within almost hours again. That's the concept, the ideal concept. That's the philosophy of the company. It goes completely against the philosophy of the company to be sending up these tankers that are thrown away. I don't see it in a million years. They'd rather launch, they're designing the system to launch many more. They'd rather launch more times and bring up a little less fuel each time to bring the rocket back and reuse it. That's the philosophy of the company. So I don't think that, AJ, that backup, that plan you heard is a priority on their side at all. I don't think so.
I could see them doing something like that to make the 27 orbital tests with the HLS stage.
Yeah, it's not possible for them to do you do the reusable. But first of all, if you make the tanker reusable, that reduces your payload capacity or propellant capacity.
Yeah, so
Quite a bit. That's one problem.
They do more launches to make up the difference.
How many?
No, once again, I think
don't think that's the permanent
SpaceX
plan.
has said
if like all the parts don't come together by the middle of 2027, I can see them saying, "Okay, we're just going to throw away 5 Starships to be able to do this
Yeah,
thing."
they can do that. And the analysis done by NASA and other people where they said that it would require anything from 10 to 16 to 20 launches, refueling launches. That was all done for expendable upper stages, expendable tankers.
Where did you hear that, AJ? That's an
would be even
interesting.
more.
That's interesting if that's true. So you're saying when NASA, I mean, I heard NASA said it would take high teens refueling missions to get ready for HLS to go to the moon. And are you saying that you now know there's some source that told you that those refueling missions that NASA was referring to were expendable refueling missions?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it was NASA and Office of the Inspector General and SpaceX. They all had numbers for these refueling launches for expendable launches, expendable tankers. And those were 10, 16, and 20. NASA was 20.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an Inspector General. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Aerospace Corporation, this is what Mike Griffin told me. The Aerospace Corporation also did the analysis and they came up with 40 launches. So, I mean, I did my own, and I came up with about between 10 to 15, So 40 is probably not possible, but even 10 to 15 is just incredibly bad.
Well, I mean, I agree with the 40. If you just look at where they are now with V2, they could get a little bit of fuel into orbit with V2 in theory, and I think it would take at least 40 to refill a full orbital depot. But you have to assume that they're going to do better with V3. I don't know if they're going to get to 100 tons per launch, but they'll do better than whatever, like 10 or 15 that they can do with V2.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not. I just. Well, at the time that this analysis was done by aerospace or NASA, we were talking about V2. The V3 was not in the picture at that time, so it's probably
Or Raptor 3 either. Remember, Raptor 3 is much more efficient than engine by a significant amount.
Yeah, I've seen numbers like 69 and 118 tons of fuel for reusable and non-reusable, assuming a V3 configuration. But that might still be low, right? Because there's we don't actually know what the answer is here yet. We have to measure the performance of this actually going into orbit. And also they have to get beyond the stage of the vehicle where there's lots of excess instrumentation and weight on the vehicle to a production style vehicle, right?
This is the reason why I've been pushing the idea, and I mentioned this to Jared Isaacman when I met him last weekend, of Falcon Heavy or set of Falcon Heavies as a possibility for just not refueling but docking in orbit and being able to go to the moon. You can do that with Falcon Heavy if you have a good lander. Now, that's a big problem, of course, obviously. And this lander, the problem is that the landers that the SpaceX and Blue, especially SpaceX, has come up with, as I said, just too much dry weight, 85 to 100 ton of dry weight. Why do you want to take that to the moon? Why do you want to land that and then take off again? That kind of a weight. It's just makes no sense. So
I'll tell you why it makes sense. I'll tell you why it makes sense, because
it may make
Elon
sense
Musk
10 years
has
from now.
Elon Musk has a great deal of imagination, and he has proposed audacious, absurd ideas in the past that everyone said didn't work or would never work, and he has proved them wrong repeatedly. And so I think what he's looking at here is he's trying to establish a system that will work effectively to bring a lot of tonnage to the moon so that it's realistic to build a base. He's thinking in terms of realistically doing what we want done. And so that's why he said we're going to land the first stage and reuse Falcon 9. Nah, it can't be done. We're going to catch for Super Heavy and Starship with chopsticks. What are you, insane? That can't be done. And so we're going to launch Starship on an hourly basis to refuel our depots like tanker trucks go to gas stations. What are you, crazy? That can't be done. I say his imagination generally is good because he focuses, once he gets these wild ideas, he then says, well, how can we honestly, coldly build the engineering to make it happen? He's not afraid to change his mind if the engineering proves it can't be done, but he's picked ideas that work. And so I'm very confident that down the road, as they develop Starship, all of the concerns you have, Ajay, are going to steadily vanish as he starts doing things that have been inconceivable in the past. Launching a Starship Super Heavy, within one day after it came back from space. No, that can't happen. He's going.
Robert, don't forget that Falcon 9 was also Falcon 9 was also supposed to be fully reusable. They had a plan to reuse the upper stage.
Yes.
And they had videos of it and everything.
Yes.
And eventually they decided that the engineering folks said, nope, it's not going to work. And Elon backed away from it and instead focused on Starship.
That's right. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of him being realistic. But everything about Starship Super Heavy says he's going to be able to do the whole ball of wax.
Let me say a word here. All the stuff that Elon Musk has come up with have not been proven to be true. proven to be possible. Hyperloop is a good example. It was bullcrap. Boring Company is another example. Falcon 9, I'll give you absolutely. Falcon 9 is a fantastic example of success and fantastic example of the giant leap that we have been able to make in space exploration. Absolutely. But I don't think that necessarily conveys that the Starship will be able to do the same thing. Those two examples, and then there was a third one, battery wall. So all of these things, and I think that data center is going to be the fourth one, which is not going to pan out in space. The orbital data center, million orbital data center,
Let's
all that.
talk about that for a
pan out.
minute.
Okay, one second. Let me finish this. So that I would not extrapolate everything based simply on Falcon 9. That's all I'm trying to say. Falcon 9 is a great success, and I'm really, really, very, very happy and thankful to Elon for doing that. But that doesn't mean that everything that he has done or his plans to do is one day going to work out.
3 years from now, AJ, we'll see who is right.
Okay, I'm now going to step in because we are so deep in the shit of the weeds of SpaceX and Starship that even I can't stand it anymore. And I am sure that most of the people listening in the audience, even if they're engineers out there, that's like a WTF. The weeds are so thick here with speculation and this is what they said and that is what they said. Come on, guys. What else is going on in the space world than the weeds of Starship? Something in the
why don't you
minds.
come up with
Wait
something,
a minute. Stop
David?
talking, AJ. Something.
No, why don't you? I'm leaving now. Okay. Bye.
Why are you leaving? I'm about to invite you to share into something that you're capable of sharing into.
Well, I mean, this is really, David, this is really not very good.
Okay, I know it's not.
We started discussing this thing because this is an open line. We are discussing this thing openly and nicely.
Okay, and I'm going to open it up to try after an hour. But AJ, I'm inviting you, if you'll let me talk, that I know you know so much more than just talking about Starship. You've got a lot to say about the Russian missile. You've got a lot to say about experiences that you had at Mar-a-Lago talking space to the people that are planning and doing all of this. Some of you guys have so much other stuff on your mind. We've used up half of our open lines, 2 hours on the weeds of Starship. Can't we surely, among this group of incredibly talented people, bring in additional topics? Or do you just want to convene a show about Starship for 2 hours? I'm happy to do that if everyone wants a Starship show for 2 hours. But God, we've got Zimmerman, who writes on all sorts of really fantastic topics. John, a guru on settlement, getting ready to see what's cooking with ISDC. The same with Sherry. Joe, Phil, going to be at ISDC with great topics. I want more than just Starship. And that's not personal. AJ, I'm trying to get you on Hotel Mars for the Russian missile. I'm having trouble. John's not replying. That thing is a real threat to the United States. And you're one of the few people speaking out about it. And that deserves to have people speaking out about it. So I'm just trying to broaden it and get away from Starship. And again, last time, if all of you want a 2-hour Starship speculation show, hey, I'm happy to do it. And the only topic will be Starship. But let's bring in more on open lines.
I agree.
Because
And
we're
I'd like to bring in a topic.
AJ, I want to hear from AJ on the Russian nuclear missile. He really understands that threat. And you're not getting that threat from the government. You're not going to get it from Golden Dome. You're not getting it from the journalists. And AJ's one of the few people I've read and I've talked to that really understands what we're facing if this is real and deployed. And AJ, I'd like to hear from you on that.
So you want me to talk about that a little bit now? Maybe?
Yeah, because I think this affects every single one of us.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
yeah. Yeah. This thing that happened in Russia at October 21 is when a nuclear powered missile flew for 14,000 kilometers, 15 hours, non-stop, continuously. And that has never been done before in the history of the world. Never. The fact that they are able to do that, the reason why they are able to do that is because you don't have to carry any fuel or propellant. And all these Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever you call them, have been doing for last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, have been designing this, hypersonics and other weapons. All of them require some kind of hydrolocks or metal locks or, or RP locks type of situation. This is the first time that a missile has flown, and Russia also tried it 12 times before, and only 2 of them partially were successful. This thing, because it flies at 50 to 100 to 150 meters altitude, cannot be detected by Golden Dome. So it's all useless. This thing can maneuver like this around any of the defenses because it's flying, and it can use aero forces and all of those kinds of. It is very, very dangerous. I have gone and talked to Pentagon about it and stuff. They're not taking it seriously enough. What Russia has done is absolutely amazing. This is going to change the way that these things are done and all that. But the other thing is that what is possible is to also apply it to aircraft and all that. And there are various different nuclear power plants that may be possible. Which one Russians have used, we don't know. At least I don't know. But they used something, and it looked like it did not have any radioactive exhaust because it was not noticed. If this is the case, and they are able to do that, that's extremely dangerous. This is nuclear powered, but also nuclear capable. And it can go under the radar of Golden Dome. It can go under, you cannot detect it from space because obviously it's flying, very close to the surface. You cannot detect. Yeah.
AJ, do you have any suggestions on countering this then?
I have a suggestion, but I cannot discuss that and show about that in open line here. No, but I do have a suggestion which I gave to Department of Defense.
So I have a question, AJ.
Huh?
How is this more dangerous than like a nuclear-powered submarine launching a Tomahawk type missile near the coastline of the country? How's this particular always flying missile more strategically advantageous?
Yeah, this is with the submarine. Now, this is something that can go around the Earth 100 times if necessary. It can stay in airborne for a year if necessary. But obviously, it's not going to be necessary. But flying a Tomahawk missile or something like that from a submarine, yeah, it's similar. It has a similar scope, but it is still coming from a submarine, and submarine detected would people would know. This is something that cannot be detected, even long distance, long ways away.
Well, you could detect it, I think, with IR from satellite, can't you? Because of the heat of the nuclear reactor. But practically intercepting it would require a much dispersed area defense system to defend the whole continental U.S. So I think the real thing that Russia is trying to do is they're saying, look, the U.S. has pulled out of the ABM treaty originally just for a limited defense against North Korea, maybe now for Iran, depending on what happens with Iran, we eliminate their nuclear missiles or not, or the potential future ones, that is. But now we're going with Golden Dome for an actual full global strategic defense, which undermine their deterrent. So the reaction to that is this, and also the submarine with the robotic torpedo with the ultra large warhead. I think they're just trying to reestablish a deterrence, aren't they? Basically.
Well, okay, first of all, the IR signature thing that you mentioned, the IR signature of this, the temperature of the exhaust coming out is of the order of about 800 degrees centigrade, say 900 degrees centigrade, no more than that. And the IR signature in that case from planes would probably be even higher temperature. So
Yeah.
to be able to distinguish between that would not be possible without making mistake. So that's really not possible. In terms of the radioactive exhaust detection, it is possible to put a heat exchanger in between the ramjet area or whatever, some turbine area, turbo ramjet area, and the nuclear reactor, in which case the exhaust would not be radioactive. So that also cannot be used for detection. In any case, we have to have a deterrent against this. And I'm not saying we want to use this thing for any, purpose, but we have to have something in our back pocket, just the same way that we had ICBMs in our back pocket against Russia. And that the deterrent has obviously worked for 70 years right now. And so the same way, if we don't have this in our back pocket, Russians have this. I mean, they can fly, hundreds of these or thousands of these. These are not very expensive, and at the same time, and then whatever. So that really is very, very scary, very dangerous. And the fact that we are not doing something in this country is even more dangerous.
AJ, this is Sherry. How is it controlled? Is it remote control like drones?
No, it's controlled. Well, supposedly AI controlled is what I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, that was what that's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's
So
better than
basically,
people.
What a lot of us maybe here don't know, and maybe others, is that you're pretty well connected to people that if they listen to you, they know where to take the information. So I don't know, and I'm not asking you to reveal if you have classified designations or not. I don't know that, and again, I'm not suggesting you reveal whether you do or don't on the space show. But why, from your perspective, does this seem to be dismissed?
Because I'm not a big company. I'm not sure what the problem is, but this is really a hell of a mistake that the country would be making. The other thing is that, imagine this, if this is possible, and my design also does not have radioactive exhaust. Aircraft application of that is something that I have done that I can talk about a little bit. I can go from here to Australia, India, etc., in 100 grams of fuel. 100 grams, not even kilograms, 100 grams. That much energy exists in the nucleus of whatever it is, whether it's a uranium-233, uranium-235, all of them have approximately 200.1 MeV of electricity or energy released upon fission. That is 3.5 million times more, 3.5 million times more than coal, and 1 million times more than any of these hydrolocks and RP locks or whatever it is that we were talking about, which are almost more or less in the same arena, or same amount. So that energy is what we need to take advantage of, which is what I've done in my design. And then if we apply that to an aircraft and prove that it is safe, this is nuclear power, and there is a reason why I'm saying that it can be safe, is that could just revolutionize transportation, commercial transportation at the same time,
How many years have you been doing hypersonic?
Hypersonics I've been doing since 1990 almost,
And nuclear, how many years have you been doing?
Nuclear, I've been doing the nuclear power for terrestrial use for 5-6 years, and nuclear power for this about 3 years, 2-3 years for missile.
And the same people you talk about this to, as I understand your conversation, you brought up thorium usage.
Yeah.
People on the space show are sick as hearing about that as I am about Starship and the weeds. But they dismissed that as well, and yet nobody is bringing power solutions to the table. And when they say we're getting nuclear more friendly, are we really? Can we design a power plant? Can we get one built in under 10 years? Can we get one financed? Whether it's for data centers or for grid work, or there's something missing in this complete story. I wish I knew how to focus in on it for the space show, because I think it involves space. But clearly you've got components of solutions here, there, here, and they can't come together with the people that control our lives, and they do control our lives. Just be
right.
about it.
I'm a member of the American Nuclear Society, life member actually, and just about 2 weeks ago or so, they had a webinar. There are 4 or 5 new nuclear companies which have come online. One is called ILO Atomics. Other one is called Astra something, atomic, at least the two that I remember. And there were a couple of others. All of them are building about 10 megawatt type of power plants now. And they think that they can factory build them very soon, within a year or so, that they'll be able to have them available for building. I think that most of them, well, at least the ILO is, and that's one of the people that I was suggested, to come here to speak to, is building something from in uranium oxide, using uranium oxide. So they are not using thorium either. The other ones, there is one company that was thinking of using thorium. The other one called Astra, I don't know what I think that they are not, I don't know what they're using. But they are working on these 10 megawatt type of power plants that will go with the data centers. So I think that all those kinds of things are probably going to happen within just a few years from now. So that's one thing. And the other thing you mentioned about, well, connection. So let me just say that I am talking to some people, some senators, let's say, about this Burevestnik missile, and they've been receptive.
And
we'll see.
Talk to them about Falcon Heavy, and where does that go?
Well, I when I talked to, I was at Mar-a-Lago last weekend, right? So, and that time, on second day of these meetings, Jared was there. Jared gave a speech and talked. And there's one thing that I'm going to bring up a few minutes later, but I asked him this question that, if you, we have to do all these things. What about? He didn't answer this, but he said he was not, I guess, not dismissive about Falcon Heavy idea. That's all I can say. And the guy who is the head of NRC, RNC, is going to try to have in meeting with me and Jared and stuff, and try to arrange that. So when he does, I will mention this a little bit more. If it does happen, who knows? I don't know.
Marshall, what do you want to ask AJ?
Marshall?
One of the key questions that keeps coming up on the data centers is, how long does it take to get the permits for all the power supplies? And what I've basically found out is 5 years is supposedly, just making a standard natural gas-fired electrical plant. And to do nuclear, they're saying 10 years. And I turn around and look at this one data center that they're talking about in Louisiana, and gee, they seem to have already got the problem solved. And which means if you put enough money into a data center and take it to any one of the states of the United States and start saying, hey, we're going to need this permit, and this permit, is it really that easy to get around all the requirements for the power plants? Which means if you're talking about the new nuclear plants,
Yeah.
okay, you can design them, but how long does it take to get them permitted so that you can use them?
3 to 6 months is what now it is. That was an executive order, I think, that went in just recently. Executive Order 53 and 57, I think it was, that I heard from ANS, American Nuclear Society people, that it can take only 3 to 6 months now, because everything has to be, and I think that this is also another executive order, is to not use the present available energy in any population area for the data center, but use its own energy supply.
Yeah, behind the meter, right? That's
Yeah.
the new thing, is behind the meter power, right?
Is what? Say it again. Behind?
In the industry, they call that behind the meter.
Oh, okay. I
And
didn't know.
like
Okay,
you're on the data center side of your power generation inside the data center complex, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's possible to make, for example, the one that I have designed is for a 25 megawatt power plant, thermal, which means about half that electric. It is at a higher temperature, so the efficiency is pretty good. That is only about, the shortest one is 5 meter long and 1 meter in diameter. That includes the reactor and heat exchanger. So
AJ,
even if I'm
wanted to ask
wrong
you
by
a
a
question.
factor of 2, it is still quite very attractive.
So AJ, I wanted to ask you a question. There was a whole bunch of tweets about this, that the military is doing something with some small modular reactor.
Microreactors, yeah.
They were just doing a test of like moving one to a military base, where they told them like, oh, I want to move it here, start now. And then it took, I don't know, 10 days or something to get it set up, or something like that. Do you know anything about that program? Like who's with?
Yeah, I think that's a microreactor program that you are talking about. And I think that moving the reactor part that they did on plane was something else, but I don't know much about that, But the microreactor program, for the bases, different bases, I think that they have selected 2 bases where they want to put the microreactors, and we'll see how it goes. I think it'll go fairly well. The only problem is that if those people, and modular reactors, the SMR, small modular reactors, which are approximately 100, 200, 300 megawatt power range, those are most of the solutions that have been given so far have been pressurized water reactors, which is not the right solution. The right solution is, I think, is the molten salt reactor with uranium-233 or thorium or uranium-235 even. But that is going to change the equation for energy, for data centers first, but terrestrially also, in future. Any other
Is
comments?
any of this related to the defense question with the Russian nuclear missile, or are they totally somehow separated?
Well, the energy or the power base used for both of them is similar or same. So they are related. They are not totally different. But one requires, data centers, for example, require that additional turbine machinery to produce electricity from it that can power the data centers. For the military use, at least the one that I'm talking about, it doesn't require that. It's just it's a direct application of heat to air. Incoming air is heated.
Are we, to your knowledge, working on a similar type of nuclear missile that the Russians have, or you wouldn't know about that?
Oh, well, I don't think we are. No,
Well, we
we know
did
that
it
we
one
worked
time.
on this, huh?
We did it one time. There was the
We did
Pluto.
it one time in the 60s. It was called Tori 2A, 2C, Project Pluto.
Yeah,
And
Project
that was
Pluto.
just, it was just something, on ground that was done. It was successful. They made a ramjet work, but that one had radioactive exhaust, etc. So, it really
It
was
was
not
also
the right thing.
it was a lot bigger than the run of the Russian missile. The run of the Russian
Yeah.
missile is an extremely compact nuclear reactor, which is pretty crazy.
Which one? Which one?
The one in the Russian missile, the
Oh, yes,
reactor
right, yeah.
is
But
very compact. It's under a meter in diameter, which is like,
I know, I mean, I have designed it, so
right?
it's not impossible to do that. So it's possible to
Well,
do
from
that with the new technologies and all that that's available now, which was not available 50 years ago.
But from a strategy point of view, we don't have the demand for it that the Russians would, since Russia's nowhere not proposing a Golden Dome type system for themselves, and their limited defense from Moscow, which, so our current deterrent, and if we can maintain it and expand it, the new Sentinel missile, the new submarines and stuff, B-21 bombers should be able to provide an adequate deterrent for us at the moment. Right. Besides, their air defense has been depleted considerably because of the Ukraine war. I mean, so, so that's why we're probably not rushing into that technology. Plus, testing it would have the environmentalists would probably spin up if we tried to test one of them, where the Russia can get by with that stuff, domestically.
Yeah, I don't think the testing would be too much of a problem. We can test it in various different ways without nuclear and all that for a turbo ram thing. But the other thing that you brought up is important, and it's interesting that we don't need the deterrent because we already have, and Russians don't have the Golden Dome type of a thing on the Chinese. But who knows? They might have it someday, or they might have their allies would also have that someday, sometime or the other. But I think in any case, even then, it is a good thing. It's a must for the president to have in his back pocket during any negotiations with either Russians. And I've heard and seen that the Chinese are developing the same type of a thing, Burevestnik type of a missile, and maybe even a supersonic version of that, as the Russians have done, or as I have done.
I want to ask Ajay a question in terms of the hypersonic capabilities that I'm aware of going on right now with the military. The military has been doing extensive testing of hypersonic technology using Rocket Lab's HASTE rocket, Stratolaunch's Talon test vehicle, and there were other cases as well. They did some testing with Varda's capsule coming back from space to test sensors and avionics. In addition, I saw a report, and I cannot remember the name of the missile system, but they supposedly shipped 8 hypersonic missiles to use in Iran in the present conflict, and they were hypersonic. So I'd like, because from what you've been saying, you get the impression we're not doing anything, but we are doing something, and I want to know exactly how that fits in with what you're talking about. I mean, how it seems that there is a hypersonic program, and using private enterprise, they've been very successful in the last 3 years and actually making a great deal of progress. How does that fit in with what you're talking about?
All hypersonic programs, for example, that we have are mostly rocket boosted first stage and a wave rider type or any type of aerodynamic vehicle that traverses and flies at very high speed. So rocket boosted, so some Mach number. And this I can talk about because this is all open knowledge. But that's what, if something happens, this has not happened. This thing about sending it to Iran has not happened yet. But it's been being discussed. But that is just simply rocket boosted. So you rocket boosted to some high Mach number and high enough altitude, and then of course the other thing flies on its own kinetic power, kinetic energy, basically. It is nothing, it is completely different than what I'm talking about with this Burevestnik missile, which flies under its own power and its unlimited range. Hypersonic missile will still have range of 1,000, 2,000 miles, 300 to anywhere, HACM, and all the other ones are like that. But this Burevestnik one and all that are just incredible range, infinite range. That's quite different. No?
Yeah. Well, one thing about the Burevestnik type missile is it could attack the United States from a 360-degree axis. It could go down and fly through Mexico and come up that way, or all the way through Canada. Or in other words, whereas normally we have a narrow window of the ICBMs coming through this narrow window to look at, this is more, so that they have a point. That's the threat it does propose. I mean,
and ICBMs, one can look at the trajectory and you can extrapolate from that where it is going to go. You can't do that with Burevestnik. And yes, exactly, it can come from 360 degree, from any direction. It's quite dangerous, quite capable, and we are not really doing enough. Is a big problem.
What did I miss something? How fast does it go? Do it in miles per hour, please.
Well, at this particular one that Russians flew goes at about 600 miles per hour, something like that. It's a subsonic.
So it's high
But it's not so different that you could not. It would be different to differentiate from an airplane then.
Yeah, it would not be possible.
I was thinking the speed might differentiate it, but no, I was wrong about that. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Russians have been pretty creative in using, coming up with other ways to use their weapons, like the whole Burevestnik, which is kind of an IRBM. And they've actually deployed it in Ukraine a couple of times, right? Using non-nuclear warheads, right? So, nobody thought of using IRBMs for non-nuclear warheads before, right? It's sort of massively inefficient, and expensive, but
and they have deployed Kinzhal missile, which is a hypersonic missile, which is same type. But that was really not very effective. I think that this particular thing that I'm talking about, Burevestnik nuclear powered thing, is more important and more damning than hypersonic program, actually. And the hypersonic program is getting tens of billions of dollars right now. Of course, they're fielding them, so it is true. But this one, not developing this in our country, is horrible mistake.
Well, by the way, the Burevestnik missiles have been tested, but I think were kind of demonstrations. The question is, the only thing I could see it would have a practical use and would be air base attack, where you'd have very high value targets you might be able to hit with these kinetic weapons, such as advanced fighter planes at 100 million plus a shot, but use it beyond that and actual cost effectiveness, it really doesn't get it. The other possibility is, are they all going to be conventional, or are they going to some of them have 6 nuclear warheads? That's the other possibility. It's just
This is nuclear. This is called nuclear capable, nuclear powered, nuclear capable. So that's what it is. So that's really makes it very, very dangerous.
Yeah. And
Ajay, when did the Russians do I looked on my website. I only hypersonic story from Russia. A glide test similar to what you described was back in 2016. I think you mentioned a more recent test. When was that?
The more recent test was for the Burevestnik, the nuclear powered missile, and that was in October 21 of last year.
October of last year, you said.
October 21 of 2025. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't hypersonic though. It
was not hypersonic. It was subsonic.
Test. They flew the missile for 15 hours.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If you go to David's blog, I put a summary of it from Grok on there.
Oh, okay, yeah. I hope my name is not there somewhere
What
in
did
there.
they say? What did the summary say, John?
With respect to what's your question?
How did it summarize
The missile, the Burevestnik
the
missile.
missile?
So the claims of the test are duration and distance, 15 hours, covered 14,000 kilometers. It performed and prescribed vertical and horizontal maneuvers, demonstrating ability to evade missile and air defenses. Propulsion is nuclear propulsion with a ramjet compressing, oxygen. And Putin called it a key or final test with preparations for deployment to follow. Norway's intelligence service confirmed the test occurred and noted the missile flew significantly further than before.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done several tests of this kind of missile, including one that was a complete disaster because they crashed it and ended up with a lot of nuclear material scattered about. But that was back in like 2019. So this system has been under development for a long time.
Yeah, since 2016, actually, at least. And then they have applied this to Poseidon also, which is a submarine torpedo or something like that, which is let go from a submarine, and that can also go, I think 50 knots. It can travel 50, 60 knots, which is really
You remember that's incredibly large, and there's like one submarine that can launch them or something like that. Like
I do not know.
They need a special submarine to launch it.
It's possible, yeah. But it was really, that's also nuclear powered. So they are doing some pretty damning things with their development. And we need to do that. This also, along with hypersonics, they can continue with hypersonics, but this thing needs to be.
Well, they certainly need to know how to shoot these things down.
I'm sorry?
They certainly need to be able to shoot these things down.
Yeah, well, it's very difficult if they are flying at 100 meters. You cannot distinguish from ground radar from other smaller airplanes which are flying or other drones or whatever it might be flying.
And when you do shoot one down, you have an instant Superfund site.
Well,
I want to just raise a caveat here that we all should be aware of so we don't panic about the danger of this. Because once again, we're talking about Russia and Russia's ability to design, build, and complete any high-tech project has been very suspect for many decades, especially in their space program. This does not mean this is not an issue that should be addressed. But I think before we panic, we should recognize that I looked up on Behind the Black and found my report on this particular flight in October. Thank you for giving me the details, AJ, so I could find it. And a lot of this from Russia must be taken with a certain grain of salt because they're not entirely trustworthy and they haven't been very competent for many, many years on a lot of things. So not saying we shouldn't do it, but I think we should be less afraid of the risk than we shouldn't panic. That's all.
No, I'm not talking about panicking, but I think that the fact that they flew like that and flew for that long, that was probably easy enough for the Department of War, Department, CIA, other people to confirm, and they have not unconfirmed it.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's probably true.
AJ, do you at all follow the entrepreneurial fusion industry and their claims that it's just around the corner or whatever they're doing? Do you have any interest or following of whether we're going to have fusion or not?
I have. I mean, obviously, I would just say I have no interest in following that. I think it's not going to happen. It's always going to be, well, it's not going to happen in the times period that we need additional energy and which is, let's say, next 10, 15 years. It's not going to happen within next 10, 15 years. So I wouldn't even I have been really surprised at the amount of money that has been spent on that by Silicon Valley, whereas they haven't done the same thing for more readily available solution for climate and for CO2, for pollution and all that, which is nuclear, and especially advanced nuclear, which is generation 4 nuclear. And within that, this uranium-233 or thorium with molten salt reactor. Some people are developing these reactors, small reactors with, and I'll just mention one last thing and then I'll shut up. Using sodium. Now, they think that is quite safe and all that. I have my doubts about its safety. I mean, it's so obviously, you know that sodium, liquid sodium, reacts very violently with water. So it's a problem. So among those, I have felt that the molten salt reactor using FLIBE, which is fluoride lithium beryllium compound, is probably the best solution with either thorium or uranium-233 later on. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
China has a thorium reactor operational, right? I read something about that like last year.
Yeah. I have done a fair amount of work on that, how it works. Is that what you are asking? How it works?
Well, I was wondering, like, is it, I heard that they put a thorium reactor online. I haven't heard that they actually used it to generate power or that they have the full fuel cycle for thorium reactors mastered or whatever. Do you know?
You mean China? You mean China? Yes. China copied the technology which was available online from what we had done from 65 to 69 at the Oak Ridge National Lab, ORNL. And there was a guy named Weinberg, Dr. Weinberg, who actually built a thorium molten salt reactor at that time in 65 to 69. But he was cut off and everything because it doesn't create plutonium. It did not create plutonium, which is what was needed at that time in the 70s and 80s for bombs. Now the thing is that we have plenty of that, but what we need now is energy, and we need energy without pollution.
Mm-hmm.
We need something which can sustain and energy for us and sustain all these other problems, CO2 and all these other things, which I'm not sure of, but if it is there, it's there. But that can all be solved by this type of thing, which is that, and there is 600,000 ton of thorium in the United States, which is enough to give us electricity for all of us for 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by that time, maybe we'll have figured out the fusion. But at this point in time, for the question that was asked, I'm not interested in fusion.
Yeah. One quick question. How many reactor years have they put on thorium reactors? It seems like there's been like 2 or 3. They run like a year and they get shut down. So I was thinking maybe there's like 3 reactor years of testing.
Yeah, it's about, well, in this country, maybe 4 or 5 reactors in the 60s. But that's because it was forced to shut down.
Yeah.
It didn't get shut down. It was forced to, and Weinberg was pretty unhappy about that. Weinberg was removed from the, chair of the press, whatever, from ORNL.
Well, the key point there is there's like 6 years of thorium reactors compared to the standard light water nuclear reactors that are what? There's about 1,000 of them around the world.
440, yeah.
They've been running for 40 years.
Yeah, sure. But it's just like chicken and egg thing. You don't do anything, and then people say because you haven't done anything, you can't do it. You can't do anything. That kind of a thing. It's
That's
just
exactly my point. Yes.
yeah, it's just such a idiotic thing to not fund. I mean, we are scientists. We need to look at the numbers, logic, rationale, all those things, and based on that, we can extrapolate and we can figure out. And I'm sure there are there are problems that we are here to try to solve some of those
Yeah.
problems.
Unfortunately, we have to deal with politicians.
Hey, Jay,
Yeah.
I keep getting email from Pulsar Fusion in the United Kingdom, as an example. I get them from other companies too. So they want to come on the show, and then of course they never reply when I give them the dates to come on the show. But they've got a Sunbird Fusion propulsion program, and they're getting funded from the British government for advanced propulsion systems for deep space exploration, etc., not for grid power.
They have a
So
very
if we
slick video.
very, if we separate grid power
Mhm.
from powering satellites and things like that, are you more upbeat on fusion? Have you ever heard of Pulsar? And I'm still trying to get them to come back on. So Glenn Mandel keeps contacting me from firecrackerpr.com,
Mm.
is their a PR firm, and says that the CO can't wait to come on to the space show. And then I send him another set of dates. Anyway, it's a merry-go-round. What can you say about fusion for deep space satellite and that type of uses over and above grid power for people here on Earth?
Well, I mean, so far the fusion, the tokamak, whether it's a tokamak type or inertial fusion, confinement fusion, that we are talking about, those couple of things, requires a tremendous amount of uh, data, I mean, dry weight to go with anything. And as I've said before, that if the dry weight of the upper stage of Starship is too much, if this is then this fusion thing, the dry weight is going to be horrendously high. And so to be able to, I mean, you can imagine using lasers to do inertial fusions that we do now here, and obviously at the lab, um, uh, National Ignition Facility, NIF. That is, it's just horrendously hard, and the amount of energy that they produced was about 1.2 times or something, 1.3 times, or that number has gone up a little bit, of what they put in. But what they put in, what they got out of the wall was about 100 times more. And considering all of that, and if you want to put that in a spaceship, you have to carry all those things with you. So that's just really, I would in my gut feeling, now then I've not done any exact calculation, but my gut feeling is that that's all nonsense. It's not going to happen, not going to
I
work.
saw the design of their fusion. They're using some sort of like a blowdown system where they inject all of the parts together and constrict it with magnetic fields and produce a very high temperature. And they're using helium-3, I believe, as their medium, right? It's helium-3 deuterium, I think, is the combination they're using, which is the lowest temperature combination, which is why helium-3 is a thing. It's some sort of a blowdown system where they inject the stuff and then the fusion products actually leave the reactor and are essentially what powers the rocket.
Well,
and so
I've also heard that
it generates a huge amount of heat. So I assume there's some bypass material that's also not involved in the fusion that just gets heated up and exhausted, like hydrogen or something. That they carry with them. But they say it's a very compact device, but I would love somebody who actually knew something about the physics to look at it and say, is it actually physically possible to do what they're doing, they say?
I agree with you. I mean, I haven't done that, but I think that makes me think that would be interesting to have them on the show, TSS, and see what they have to say.
Well, I'm trying to get them, but I have another question for you, AJ. Maybe it'll, in the remaining time to 2 hours, open up another discussion. But I heard while I was driving to and from San Francisco, lots of time in the air, and I have satellite radio, so I could very well have been listening to Fox News, but maybe I wasn't. I don't know. And they were touting the wonders of Musk and his data centers in space idea, and how amazingly logical it was. Now, again, and rational. Now, I don't remember who it was, and I'm not saying it was Fox. It could have been someone else, because I was also listening to Bloomberg and BBC and a little bit of CNN. And they said, just think of it. They're complaining about all the heat and power that data centers use on Earth. Space is really, really cold. So all they have to do is eject it out into space. What's more perfect than that for a LEO data center? I'm thinking,
Jay.
blank are you talking about? How friggin' idiotic are you? I mean, they've been trying to fix what's his name? Guy, I'm having a senior moment. Who's been trying to develop power nuclear for what, 10 years, 15 years? A former astronaut, Chow. What's his
Oh
nuclear
yeah,
system?
Chang or something. Yeah.
Chang Diaz, yeah.
Chang
Chang
Diaz.
Diaz.
There
You
is
know, and
actually
half
a
the problems
non-
are his radiator that's probably
Yeah.
the size of a football field. And then England had that, what was it, Reliant Propulsion that was going to build these giant 100-passenger space things, and they needed radiator cooling. And of course, I think it finally folded. So the ignorance is mind-boggling. But
Yeah.
can one, maybe Joe can do it too, or AJ. Why, just for those in the audience that don't know what I'm talking about, why do you need to cool something in space if space is really cold? Can you succinctly and simply explain that? So, because
I
that
can certainly
NASA,
say,
millions of people heard
I,
that guy.
I can certainly say
I can.
reporters do not take thermodynamics.
Say
Yeah.
what?
I can certainly say that reporters generally have not taken thermodynamics.
They've not heard of the Stephen Boltzmann equation, for sure.
Yeah. Now, the amusing thing is there's actually a non-Muskian version of this that has popped up within the last week, right? Like Musk is talking about putting the whole data center in space and, like generating lots of power in space from solar and using the power to, heat up, NVIDIA GPUs or whatever. The D3 chip, I think, is what they call it now. It's the special rad hard chip he's going to make for being a GPU in space, right? But okay, so there's the full stack Muskian solution, but there's a really amusing hack that Meta bought into this week.
Overview effect. Overview.
Yes, the Overview Energy, I think, is the name of the company, and they've raised a bunch of money to try this out. And they might even have a satellite that's doing it, or they might have launched a CubeSat or something to test this. But what they're doing is actually something that's really interesting. And what they're doing is they put the solar cells up in space. But the classic solar energy to the ground thing is you use microwaves to send convert the solar energy, generate microwaves, send that to the ground.
That's incorrect. It's incorrect. It's near infrared.
No.
I
I know that's not their idea, but the classic that you've always heard about, the thing that NASA studied, et cetera, back in the 70s was using microwave to go to the ground. But what they're doing is they're using probably infrared lasers, I'm guessing, to generate a spot on an existing solar farm on the ground. And as it happens, it turns out, solar cells are sensitive to infrared radiation up to 1100 nanometers. And I think the best frequency is 980. I actually spent some time in Grok trying to figure this out. And it said, if you want to do this, the best frequency is 980 nanometers because the atmosphere is pretty transparent there. And there's production equipment, production semiconductor lasers available that radiate in that frequency. So you can build essentially a phased array of lasers pointing at your your solar cell on the ground. Now, they haven't said, isn't a lot of information about what Overview is actually doing out there. I
Been
think
on the show. We've had them on the show.
Yeah, well, there's not a ton of information, but it's a cool idea, right? And it might conceivably work because you could essentially have a solar array that feeds a data center, and when the sun's not there, you could feed it with infrared from the satellite.
Well, Facebook or Meta thinks it's viable. I mean, they put a lot of money into it. So
yeah, well, Meta's contracted for a gigawatt of power delivered this way. We don't know how much money they actually spent.
Okay, yeah.
I would be somewhat suspicious of. I believe they have an option or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Right?
it's an MOU type of a thing, you know.
Yeah. There might even be no money changing hands because at this point, having an anchor customer like Meta is so valuable to Overview that they might just be using them to raise money, right?
I'd like to insert here something that relates to what Marshall pointed out earlier about the difficulties, regulatory difficulties of putting in data centers on the ground. That relates back to the data centers in space, Elon Musk's idea, getting power from space, the Overview idea you're bringing up, Joe. I want to think in terms more of the economics of what's going on here. This is not to say data centers make any sense in space. There are people now that think it might make sense in space. And the reason they're doing this is because of those regulatory and local issues on the ground. Even Overview's thing, I bet you're going to have some problems with people protesting that infrared beam going through the atmosphere to the solar cells. There's going to be environmental questions there. And so from the space industry's perspective, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, the data center thing is wonderful, not because they're data centers, but because it's driving launch demand, market demand. And it's going to be something that's going to force a lot of launch industry, market to the launch industry. And I think we should be aware of this because as much as we might have doubts about the data centers, if a lot of big tech companies that want to build data centers decide to put them up in space, whether they all go bust or not won't matter in the interim while they launch their data centers. And I think that's the benefit the aerospace industry is looking at right now. Every rocket company that I've looked at or talked to, they're all very excited about data centers, not because they're in favor of data centers, but because they're in favor of launching the data centers.
It's also a ridiculous,
that's the exciting part.
It's a ridiculous capital spending stream. If you take all the Mag 7 companies and add up their capex for last year, NVIDIA's revenue represents 34% of the capex of all of the Mag 7 companies, excluding NVIDIA itself. And that's a crazy big number, right? That's like 400 billion. The total capex between those companies is like 400 billion for last year. It's going to be 800 billion for this year. Right. They've already announced this, right? They're not going to be able to build all those data centers on the ground, right? There's going to be, there's going to be power, or there aren't going to be transformers, which is today's problem, right? No transformers. There aren't going to be, turbines to generate the electricity. They're not going to be able to spend all that money. So they're going to have like $100 billion left over that they've said they're going to spend that they're not going to be able to spend. A smart launch company would find a way to consume some of that available capital.
And there are smart launch companies trying to do that right now. I've talked to a few. They are really all trying to. They see this as a customer they want to grab, and they want to provide the capability of doing so.
And the amusing thing is, the 800 or 750 billion or whatever it is, they all just reported like in the last week. So if you go read the reports they just made in the last week, they all forecast their capital expense for next year, which is where I got these numbers. They forecast like 700 billion or something like that. First of all, we talk about the NASA budget. The NASA budget's like 27 billion or something like that.
24 billion.
It's pocket change. Right. Just one of these companies is going to spend way more capex than that.
I repeat, the American space program is not at NASA right now. Remember that.
Yeah. So there's 750 billion. Maybe there's 100 billion that goes into, space data centers or something like that. because they get frustrated trying to build them on the ground.
This is
That
a
is a
reason.
huge
This is a reason
revenue.
why you've got Phantom, Relativity, Firefly, Stoke Space, Rocket Lab, plus a whole slew of European rocket startups and Indian startups and South Korean and Japanese and Australian startups, all rocket companies, because there is a significant amount of capital going to be going into getting things into space. They see that and they want to get in on that.
This is really good news for Blue having New Glenn, because a big heavy lift, a reusable heavy lift launcher coming online. Good for them.
Except they got to get it. Blue Origin's got to get its act together. We hope they do, and they have an opportunity that's glorious. But they've had that opportunity for a decade, and they haven't.
Yeah,
taken
please make your second stage actually work. Thanks.
Again, I'm sorry, Joe.
Let me ask this question.
Actually work.
Ajay.
Yeah.
Go back to the original question for people that heard the same newscast I heard. Tell the audience why you can't just vent heat into space, which is already cold.
Yeah, a guy named Stefan and Boltzmann together came up with this Stefan-Boltzmann equation, which tells you what is the rate of loss through radiation of energy, and that is sigma multiplied by some coefficient multiplied by temperature of whatever it is, the maximum temperature raised to the power 4 divided by the temperature on the other side raised to the power 4. So that is incredible amount of radiation that can take place. That is true. But at the same time, the radiation relief, it's called radiation relief. And all these hypersonic airplanes and stuff that I've designed have internal mechanism where there is, combustor and isolator, etc., where there is no radiation relief. And when there is no radiation relief raised to the power 4, it's a problem. Now, the problem is that radiation relief that you have to have was also supplanted on Earth by convection and conduction. And convection and conduction are K dt dy type of terms. So K is coefficient and dt dy is the temperature difference. And then there is a boundary layer. That boundary layer is the one that takes away a lot of the heat from something which is very hot. There is no boundary layer in space, So you cannot, obviously, there is no boundary layer because there is no gas of any type, air, gas, whatever. So you have to rely only on this particular type of relief, and it's just not enough. That requires the area for that relief, or the radiators in this case, to be very large for it to be, comparable to the thing. Otherwise, on one side, which gets the sun, gets extremely hot, the other side gets cold, and it requires radiation relief to be able to do that. So you have to do the radiation relief either with radiators, which is solid state, or you have to pass some kind of a fluid through all these channels, which is also a big problematic thing. So these people, they're talking about data centers in space and say that, hey, in vacuum, we have, we can do all these things. There's just space is 0 degrees Kelvin or, a few degrees Kelvin. It's nonsense. You require large amount of radiators. And it's the same problem on Moon to have solar arrays, which will also require radiators, and also the fission reactors, which are also required. But for this data centers problem, it is just absolute nonsense for these people to just to think that they will be able to use the coldness of space to be able to do that. And like somebody said, I think Joe said, it's thermodynamics.
Yeah, I did some math on this, and the trick is, or the trick that people will end up using to make this work, if they make it work, is to operate the chips and the data center at a higher temperature than we do here on Earth. And the reason why is because of that temperature to the fourth power problem, right? Is in the amount of radiation, the size of the radiators goes down dramatically as you go up 30 or 40 degrees C from what we think of as normal operating temperatures. So
Right, but
my guess is when they designed the D3 chip for space, one of the things that chip's going to do is operate at a very high temperature.
Yeah, but what the problem with that is that when it is very high temperature and the radiation relief is high, as soon as it cools, your amount of radiation relief decreases same way, T to the 4 power. So that's sort of works negatively against you. I mean, negatively.
Well,
There's another
how
factor
does
there
this-
which you might want to jump in on. Like I'll jump in on this is like it's called PVT, pressure voltage, process voltage and temperature, which are constants that affect the performance of a microchip. And the process can improving the smallness of the process can improve the performance of a microchip. Raising the temperature reduces the performance of a microchip significantly, and it also reduces the performance of a solar panel. So even if they make microchips that are designed to operate at higher temperatures, they're going to perform more poorly, and you're going to get less compute out of every dollar you spend on the microchip. So it's going to affect your overall system performance.
There's a
It's
definite
interesting.
trade-off.
I didn't know that. No, yeah.
Yeah, there's a definite trade-off here. Like they're going to have to balance one against the other.
Yeah.
On this,
And that's why I'm
you
all
cannot
for
make this work if you operate at 20 degrees C, which is like where data centers normally live in the US. Even Google, actually, Google operates its data centers at 30 degrees C. And one of the reasons it tries for 26 to 30 degrees C is because the cooling load is much less, but the chips still tolerate it, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because when you walk into a Google data center, it's not, it's, you feel like you're in like a normal, like warm room, as opposed to, like you feel like you're in an ice box, which is the traditional data center. You walk in and it's like freezing in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it saves a ton of energy, actually.
This is the reason why I am very much for terrestrial data centers and using nuclear power of advanced reactors to power them, which is much cheaper, much easier to maintain.
And, you have to get Martha. You have to get Martha, who lives in the next town, to actually be okay with you having like a little line of nuclear reactors outside your data center.
Yeah, well, I know, but
which is why they want to go to space. Exactly why they want to go.
But I think
there are no Marthas in space,
Marshall. Yeah, but I think that this molten salt reactor data center, even if they are 5 outside in the row, they are completely safe. They cannot blow up. So they are completely safe, and they cannot blow up, and they cannot melt down, etc. So I think that's just really
send that guy to Martha's house.
I think Sherry wanted to say something, right? Sherry Bell?
Yeah, Sherry, I want to take you back to the Russian missile. I want to know how that stops. How does it return to base, or how does it ever stop? How does it ever go back? When it runs out of fuel, how does it land safely?
Well, it's a missile, so it's not supposed to land safely, but in this case, it did, obviously. But it can just simply stop the reaction. All you do is just to stop the reaction, not run out of fuel. But you can stop the reaction. For example, there are rods that you insert in a reactor.
Yeah.
Depends on what kind of reactor it is. In some cases, some graphite rods are moved out to stop it. In pressurized water reactors that are put inside, what they do is they produce thermal neutrons, meaning if the neutrons, when the fission creates the neutrons, they are traveling at about 0.2 times the velocity of light. So, 0.2, 0.15, something like that, very, very fast. At that speed, they cannot be captured by another nucleus to do fission. And that's why to have the fission, you have to make them slow. So graphite rods are inserted in there, which slows them down, and then they are inserted or captured. So you can do the exact opposite of that, which is that if you want to slow down and stop the reaction, you take out those rods. And then when you take the rods out, I mean, this is for one particular type of nuclear, you can stop the reaction. And when you stop the reaction, it will not heat the air. And so it will not create the thrust. And then it will just simply come down.
What come down in what way? Like glide? I mean, does it
Yeah,
glide?
it will glide down.
Mhm.
It can glide down. I guess this is probably what they did.
Yeah,
Whether
that's
it glided down in the ocean or not is something I don't know.
right.
But one can think of making it glide down.
The graphic that they released of that drone test in October, I have it posted on Behind the Black. It very much looks like a drone, not a drone, a non-human controlled airplane. The small autonomous planes they make with little wings and like a
Little wings,
missile,
yeah.
and so therefore it'd have the ability to glide down, I'm sure.
Oh, that's cute. I mean, it's just so cute.
Yeah, okay.
It can kill you, but it's super cute,
Given they're flying subsonically, it would make it more efficient to get range if it had wings like a Shahed drone or
yeah, and it did have small wings. At least the graphic they released showed small wings.
Yeah, my design has larger wings, but that's okay because it flies at a much higher altitude and higher speed. That's all I can say.
Guys, we're at 2 hours. Do you keep going? Do you have something else you want to bring up?
I have one more thing I'd like to bring up.
Go ahead, you first, Sherry.
Okay, I just have one more thing, and I don't understand. I don't know enough about this. This might even be a silly question, but this is talking about cooling the data centers in space. Now, my understanding, as I recall, I was very enthusiastic about the James Webb Telescope, and they had this elaborate mechanism to keep that cool. Is that because of the difference between the distance that is and the data centers? Would that same application be useful to the data centers No, okay, it's too
the reason, remember, Webb is an infrared telescope, so it has to be cooled so it can read infrared.
Oh, that's right.
Radiation, so it can observe in the infrared.
Got you.
It's a completely different issue.
Completely different issue. I just wondered because I know they did such a fabulous job with it.
Yeah, they're trying to keep the sun, which is hot, and heats everything up that's in the path. That telescope is in the sun all the time, and so all those shields on it. They have like 4 levels of shields or something.
Right.
All those shields on that telescope are designed to keep the infrared detector assembly and the telescope cold.
Okay.
And the sun essentially would blind Webb if any sunlight hit it. It's like a telescope at night. You want to work at night so you're not blinded by the sun. And the same thing, the heat of the sun would blind Webb. That's a different problem entirely than this.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to just mention one thing, which is what Jared Isaacman mentioned in his speech, and that was that they are trying to get this nuclear-powered rocket, whatever it is called, I forgot the name, to Mars. That was, I heard that is electric propulsion, thermal electric propulsion.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have anything, proven or done or anything like that in thermal electric propulsion. We are in middle of 26, and to have it launched by 28, I just don't see it happening at all.
Ajay, we're in complete agreement on this. I think that he's optimistic. Let's put it
Yeah.
politely, very optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
It's
that they
just-
might actually reuse part of the propulsion module that was originally designed for the lunar gateway.
Yes, that's right. They're
But-
refitting a lot of stuff. Yes.
But the putting a small nuclear reactor into the propulsion module strikes me as like, really? Like you're going to do that in like 6 months or a year? Like really? Okay.
And that to
Show
electric
me that when
propulsion,
it
you know.
works.
Yeah. So that's
Guys,
electric. Yeah.
I know there, AJ, there's criticism of thermal electric. Why that form?
You mean nuclear electric propulsion?
Correct. Yeah,
NEP,
for nuclear
NEP.
propulsion.
Well, it just gives you about 10,000 seconds ISP, something like that, something of that order is what I've seen. The ISP is very, very good, very large, but the thrust is in, horrible, very, very low. So, to be able to push something out and I suppose, I mean, obviously going to, and you know what, the idea is to try to reduce going to Mars, the time, etc. That means you have to do the impulse spread sort of fast, and impulse is just thrust. So that's really thrust divided by weight, etc. So that really is possible with nuclear thermal propulsion, NTP, but I don't really see theoretically, it's not possible with nuclear electric propulsion because of the low thrust level. And thrust levels are of the order of millinewtons, newtons, something like that. It's very, very small.
Yeah, I imagine a vehicle with like hundreds of these little tiny ion thrusters that they put on satellites and stuff on the back of it, all lighting up at the same time. It'd be really cool to see. But
Yeah. I mean, electric propulsion has been used, ion propulsion has been used for secondary propulsion, not primary propulsion on these satellites for
yeah,
a long time.
every
But
Starlink has ion propulsion on it.
ion propulsion. Oh, really? I see. Okay. Yeah.
And they switch gases. Like they used to be using krypton and they switched to something else. Argon. I think they switched to argon, and the reason why is
Argon.
they get it from the air.
Why wouldn't they do nuclear thermal?
On a Starlink satellite?
Yeah, well, for propulsion in general.
For this Mars thing,
Nuclear
just
electric, yeah.
Well, they don't have an engine. They want to do this in 2 years. Like we
Okay,
have
so
ion engines, we have nuclear reactors. The problem is putting those two hands together here for the Mars mission, which, you can imagine doing that in a small number of years. But designing a whole new nuclear
Thermal.
thermal propulsion
Propulsion.
system, that's not walking in the park, right? You have to test it, and where are you going to test it? And it doesn't sound like something you could launch in a couple of years, put it that
So
way.
it's basically
Nope.
the path of least resistance and development cost.
I think
Well,
it's
there was a
physics too.
program-
I mean,
there was-
the solar panel in space converts sunlight into electricity very efficiently. A nuclear reactor with a radiator probably doesn't achieve the same level of efficiency as a solar panel. So it doesn't make sense to use a nuclear reactor in space when you're close to the sun.
But if you're going to Mars, you are going away,
No.
away from sun. But anyway, that's the thing. But what I wanted to say also is that there was a program called Draco that people know about probably, that NASA and DARPA were working together on it, and that was the one that was going to actually test nuclear thermal propulsion with triso fuel. And that program got canceled. I don't know why. And then this thing comes around. I mean, I have no idea why.
That was a
NASA
couple of
or-
years ago, right? That got canceled
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
2 years ago or something. Yeah, right. I think during the last administration got canceled. So I mean, that was really a big mistake in my opinion, where all these things were being done and they were going to test it in MEO actually, and so it was just a huge. We make so many mistakes. I just can't believe this. Anyway, So I hope that, David, that sort of throws a little bit of a light on the question that you asked.
Anybody have a final comment, closing comment, something else they want to add? I'll stay if you want to stay for at least a few minutes more. Or put the show on automatic. Maybe I can do that.
I don't know. I enjoyed the show. I think it was great. A lot of good ideas.
I want to say a closing comment. So originally, when we started doing Zoom shows, I was just kind of poking fun at all of us and calling us the wisdom team, whoever showed up. But as it's turned out, it's a pretty unique program uh, with Space Podcast, which when the space show started, we were practically the only one 25 years ago. And now everybody's a lot better funded and they're in a lot different venues and they got slick setups and we're still, plugging along. But they don't offer what you guys offer, especially when we have a guest because there's no script. You can say whatever the hell you want. You can change the topic if you want. We do allow telephone users, and many people do come in on the telephone. Ryan's not with us right now, but he came to us via a telephone call. And everyone, I mean, we don't always have 11 or 12 people in the room, but of the people we have in the room, it really is a wisdom team. And the combined expertise and breadth of field and knowledge of wisdom, where any of us can take any guest on any topic and go into the weeds if we really wanted to with their topic. I mean, I can just pull up some of the last shows, and none of us get lost, and they're not cakewalk interviews. It's pretty phenomenal. So to spend our time deep in the weeds on one subject is such a waste of talent and airtime and a chance to reach, I don't know, sometimes thousands, sometimes just hundreds. We haven't reached 1 million yet. Avi Loeb was the biggest audience we had at about 85,000. Seems to me to be a real sort of tragedy of the errors, an era of tragedy, because there's so much breadth and wealth and expertise from this group and from others that join us to not let it roll, especially on an open lines discussion program, is pretty short-sighted. And so I just picked topics at random after we got off of Starship. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a schedule. I don't have an itinerary. And I could throw out any topic and you guys could expand on it and expound on it with amazing expertise and clarity and explanation. I really don't know of another program that does this, but I also don't know of another program with a true wisdom team. So to box us in on one topic, unless we're focused on that for the show, is if any of this was criminal, I think we'd probably be criminal. But thank God it's not, or we might be criminal anyway. So I like to bring all of your expertise and strengths and wisdom, so to speak, out to the public. So our IRS approval letter said space education. That was from 2006. And so that's really what the show is all about. And we are really very well positioned for space education. And to not let you guys roll free and go places where I don't think any other program can go should not be the objective of the show. That's why I broke it on Starship and just picked at random topics. Like the reason I picked the missile, Ajay and I have been having phone calls about it lately, and I've been trying to pitch him to come back on Bachelor for that missile. and it was just on my mind. So I said, AJ, come tell us about this. Nobody's really talking about it. And we spent, what, 40 minutes on it, 35 minutes on it. And everybody could participate because everybody has expertise and wisdom. So I really value everyone who shows up for these programs, and not always, as I said, is it 11 or 12 people. But we can do this with any guest on any topic. So those of you that show up with Gary Barnard on his data center program, maybe some of you read it on Howard Bloom's thing. I have no doubt you can go as deep into his systems engineering as anybody could. Probably a lot deeper than I can go. So, first of all, thank you to all of you. And I hope you continue to be engaged in this format. I really do think it's very special. And I don't really know of another space shuttle program that does this. I know people have webinars and they explore topics. I know that there is competition and all that. Thank God you guys can take any topic and just go into it for a really deep thinking, critical thinking space shuttle program with a guest or in open lines. And I think we need to take advantage of these capabilities. That's what I wanted to say in closing. I'm sorry a couple of the people like Zimmerman and Michael Listener, he left early, and a couple of other people have left, but maybe they'll hear about it and play the ending of the show. But just in closing, thank you to everybody, and maybe some newscasters will listen to us and get a little educated over and above reading what's on their stupid teleprompter to say that is inane and stupid and makes them a fool to people who know at least a little something about what they're talking about. And unfortunately, they don't know a lot about space. And I don't think we can reform that, but maybe we can try. Final comments from anybody?
Yeah.
Sherry?
I wanted to just apologize for my earlier um, remarks, I guess, or something, blowing my top a little bit and get angry. So sorry, David. I think that you are. I mean, absolutely agree with you. I think this is one of the best space shows on the planet, really, and it's of all of us, maybe with wisdom team, yes, very good. But you are the wisest one of them all, of us all.
I'm
So I
learning
thank you.
basic engineering from all of you guys. I don't know half of
Uh,
what you guys are talking about, but
but
if you don't talk about it, I don't
mhm.
get to learn about it because I'm not picking up an engineering textbook for engineering 1A. Phil, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that we did rehash Starship again, but remember we started off talking about Artemis and SLS, and then in this, even though it was a rehash, AJ brought in some really new information when he mentioned that, the estimates of NASA were from reusable versions of Starship and not or
I
non-reusable
know.
versions of Starship. This was really interesting new information I hadn't heard before. So even though we rehashed the topic, some new and relevant stuff came out, which was interesting.
Always, yeah. Did anyone else have a closing comment?
Sherry has something to say.
Yeah, I
Looks
wanted
like.
to talk to you, AJ. I know that at least one of your abstracts has been accepted at the ISDC. Do
Yeah,
you know that?
yeah. I think
Okay,
for
cool.
the moon
Yes,
session.
exactly, for
That is
Madhu.
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I just
For
wanted you
Madhu
to
something.
know.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
that, and I also wanted to say that this morning, I mean, I had another presentation that I gave to SIAAUS
Uh-huh.
on the same abstract that was rejected by ISDC actually, and they were very happy and very happy. Let me just say happy and
All
impressed, of course, but very happy with it.
right.
So yeah.
And we do have some ISDC focused commentary coming up with Gary. He
Mhm.
said he wanted to reserve some time to pitch ISDC. Sherry's with us and Phil is with us, both heavy duty
Mhm.
participants in ISDC. John is going to be there. Joe, are you going?
I probably am not going this year because I have time conflict with the exact time. I went to the ISDC last year And the only reason I went was because I heard about it on this show.
Well, and Manuel, you're going to AIAA, not ISDC, is that correct?
I'm going to Washington to the Ascend
Well, they're
conference.
both in Washington, so
Yeah.
you're going to the one in
okay.
May. You're going to in May, correct?
Yes, in 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, so that's AIAA Ascend. And I would have
The
liked to go.
ISDC is right after that if you want to stay for another week or two.
Oh, la, la, no. To cross the pond.
For me too. Otherwise, I would have gone to the Ascend because I like to go to the Ascend. David and I usually go together because it's usually in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
But this year,
Yeah,
it's
but
in
this year
DC.
they changed. Yeah.
I would have gone to both this year if they hadn't stuck it over my birthday. So anyway, I think next year ISDC is Los Angeles, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
I think
It is.
And I think Ascend may be in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken.
So I just
Okay.
want to thank David for keeping the show together and, keeping it running.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
stuff. And I think we should have a goal that before the space show actually ends, at least either a guest or one of us needs to be in space while doing the show.
Well, I have said that for a long time. It's not going to be me in space anymore because time has seen that that's not going to happen. But some of the younger chaps, but tell me how that's going to happen. I'm all for it, 100%. I also want to interview one of the pilots of a UAP that John reports to us about all the time, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen either. They probably don't.
Yeah, but on that subject, I understand that Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, and Burleson, the congressman, have had a trip to Area 51 to check out what Bob Lazar has been talking about. I don't know how that turned out,
Let's see.
but apparently it did happen.
So they're resurrecting
we'll see what the
Bob
result
Lazar.
is.
I know there's a new movie with George Knapp and all of that's coming out or that is out.
That's called Disclosure, I think, or something like that, right?
No, this is brand new. It's not Disclosure. That was something.
S4, the Bob Lazar story, I think it's called.
Yeah, they're doing the Bob Lazar story as if it's a real. Well, I guess it is.
It's a good show, and that it restates mostly what I'd heard before. But but that's interesting that these people have actually got into I guess they can go down and see if this S4 really is there or not. I guess.
Well, the area is there; it's on the maps, but
we know area, but is the S4 there? That's south of the main base where they normally test the airplanes and stuff and drones. So the question
is that the place they went in the movie Independence Day where they, went into the hangar and the alien spaceship was sitting there?
Yeah, the general place is, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not very far from Las Vegas. It's I think about an hour and a half drive or something. But you can't do anything when you get there, and the security is unbelievably heavy, and it's camera security as well as they used to call them camel dudes in the days of Ardell. But it's patrolled security too. So you can't do anything. You can see the keep out area 1 signs. That's about the extent of it. So it's not worth the drive over there. But
not for us, but they flew in.
Well, I don't
the Director of National Intelligence. They have the presidential authority.
Fly in. I don't know what would happen if we tried to fly.
No,
they did. I'm telling. No, they had authorization.
Just imagine Tulsi Gabbard showing up and saying, "Show me your alien spacecraft right now."
Right, I'm sure they'll. Do any of you remember?
I have clearance.
Well, I mean, at a minimum, they could go down and see if the facility is down there or not. Now, they may have taken all the craft out. That's a whole different issue. Would we be able to believe what they tell us? Well, so far they haven't said it.
In the
of
movie,
course we believe them.
In the movie,
well, you would believe them, John, but I don't know that I would believe them. So
in the movie Independence Day, when the president is taken to that area or something like that, he didn't know this either.
And there's an alien space. Why didn't you tell me you had one of these?
Maybe they'll.
What did he reply?
Maybe they'll introduce them on our 250th birthday. Maybe that'll get President Trump surprised.
America 250 Alien Disclosure.
Yeah,
that's right.
The aliens are celebrating our 250th with us.
It's a good movie title, That's a
Well,
good movie title.
I
Disclosure
have to run.
250.
I really do.
That's June the 12th, and certainly Spielberg hopes that the real disclosure doesn't happen before the movie has its run. Maybe we have like a month into the anniversary of Roswell. That would be good. Then they'd have they can go to streaming.
All right. Well, Gary on data centers and space and systems engineering on Friday. When you guys go to ISDC, if you find interesting guests, let's see if we can bring them onto the space show. The same with Ascend when you're there, Manuel. So let us know. And everybody have a great week coming up. And for those of you remaining on air with us with Zoom, thank you very much for being with us. And
By the way, Ascend is very expensive. It's $1,300 to attend. So I decided not to do it.
ISDC is $1,300 to attend.
Oh, Ascend.
Oh,
Ascend.
Ascend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think NSS was that expensive.
Yeah.
How much did I pay? It was not 1,400. I think I got the early bird ticket,
Okay.
but I think it was like $700 or $800. So
Are you a student or no?
no, no, for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but I got the early bird. I think I bought the tickets. Oh my God, when was it? December or January?
Okay,
can't
guys,
remember.
I'm going to take
Yeah.
us offline.
Okay.
Have a great week. Keep looking up, as we like to say. And thank you all for being here. Goodbye, everyone from the Space Show.
Thank you.